I didn't believe it when people first told me. That is the part that still makes me feel stupid, even now. Not because I didn't hear them, but because I heard them and immediately built a whole defense for her in my head. I protected her reputation like it was my job. I argued with people who barely mattered. I carried her story for her because I thought that was what love looked like. Her name is Rena. She was the kind of person who could make ambition sound like a moral virtue. She didn't just want success. She wanted proof. She wanted to walk into a room and feel the temperature change because she was there. She talked about promotions like they were checkpoints in a race, and she was always ahead of schedule. I wasn't intimidated by that. I was impressed. I'm the steady type. I work in IT support, and I like systems that run without drama. I like reliability. I like coming home to a calm apartment and knowing I can plan 3 months ahead without chaos showing up at the door. When Rena and I met, her energy felt like the missing ingredient. She made my world feel bigger, like I was finally dating someone who had a direction and the courage to chase it. We met at a friend's birthday dinner. She was laughing at something across the table, head tilted back, and I remember thinking she looked like she was already used to being watched. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. She held the glance, smiled once, and then went back to the conversation like she'd just taken a measurement. Later, when we stood near the kitchen counter, she asked what I did. I told her. She nodded like it was a respectable answer. Not exciting, but respectable. Then she told me she worked in operations at a growing company and she was aiming for leadership. She said leadership like it was a destination, not a role. That night she asked for my number and we started texting the next day. Raina moved fast, but not in a messy way. In an organized way. She scheduled dates like appointments, then showed up fully present. She asked questions that made you feel like she was mapping your life. She remembered details. She said she respected consistency and hated excuses. It made me want to be better, not because she demanded it, but because she moved through life like time mattered. Within a few months, we were a couple, the kind that looks stable from the outside. Weekend groceries, Netflix nights, laundry folding while talking about the week. She would sit at my kitchen table with her laptop open, answering emails, and I would make dinner and feel proud that my home was a place she chose to work. Then she got recruited to a larger company. It was a jump. Better title, better pay, better brand name. The kind of company that makes people's parents smile when they hear it. She came home on her first day wearing a new blazer and a grin she couldn't hide. She told me about the office layout, the energy, the kind of people who worked there. She talked about the VP who led her division, a man named Grant. She described him as sharp, demanding, and obsessed with results. She said he had a reputation for promoting people who impressed him. I thought it was normal that she mentioned him. At the beginning, she worked late. A lot. She warned me before she even started that the first few months would be intense. She said she needed to prove herself. She said she wanted to be the obvious choice when opportunities came up. I supported it. I ate dinner alone more nights than I wanted to count. I kept my phone volume on in case she needed a ride. I stopped complaining about how late she got home because I didn't want to be the guy who resented his girlfriend's ambition. She would come home with a particular kind of energy. Not tired, not drained. More like charged. She'd talk fast, like her mind was still at the office. She'd tell me about meetings, presentations, people she needed to impress. Then she'd kiss me quickly and say she had to check something on her laptop. It felt like living next to a moving train. The first hint came from my friend Leon. Leon wasn't the jealous type. He was blunt, practical, and usually too busy to get involved in anyone's relationship drama. We were grabbing coffee on a Saturday, and he asked how things were going with Rena's new job. I said she was killing it. I said I was proud. He hesitated, then said he'd heard something. From where? I asked. His cousin worked in the same building, different department. Office gossip traveled. Leon said people thought Rena was close with Grant. Close how? I asked. Leon shrugged, careful, like close. I laughed because the alternative was getting angry. I told him that was ridiculous. I said she was ambitious, not stupid. I said people always tried to drag a woman's success into some cheap narrative. Leon didn't argue. He just said he hoped I was right. I went home and told Rena about the comment, not as an accusation, more like an eye roll. Like, look at how pathetic people are. She got annoyed, not amused, not dismissive, annoyed. She said office people were miserable and threatened. She said if she got promoted, they'd rather believe she slept her way up than accept she worked harder than them. She told me not to entertain it. I told her I wouldn't, and I meant it. For a while, I didn't think about it. Then her routine started shifting. She began dressing differently. Not more revealing, just more intentional. Higher quality, more effort. Like every day was an interview. She started getting blowouts on weekdays, not just for events. She bought new heels and practiced walking in them around my apartment like she was training for something. She also started talking less. At first, she came home and told me everything. Names, details, jokes from meetings. Then she stopped. When I asked how her day was, she gave short answers. Fine. Busy. Exhausting. Her phone became an object she guarded. She didn't have to hide it dramatically. She just always kept it angled away, always face down, always within reach. If I walked into the room while she was texting, her thumb would pause for half a second. Then she'd lock the screen. I told myself it was stress. I told myself she dealt with sensitive information now. I told myself not to become paranoid. That's the thing about denial. It feels like maturity. You think you're being secure. You think you're refusing to be controlled by insecurity. Then came the travel. First, a day trip for a client meeting. Then an overnight conference. Then a 2-night leadership retreat. I didn't mind the travel itself. I understood it. What bothered me was how vague she became about the details. "Where are you staying?" I'd ask. "A hotel," she'd say. "Which hotel? I'll text you later." Later would come, and she wouldn't text. I'd fall asleep and wake up to a single message that said "made it." Sometimes there wasn't even that. Then, about 6 months into her new job, she got her first promotion. It was a real promotion. New title, new responsibilities, more money. I was happy for her. I took her out to dinner. I made a big deal out of it because I wanted her to feel celebrated at home, not just at work. She smiled, thanked me, looked beautiful, but she was distracted. Her phone kept lighting up. She kept flipping it over. At one point, she excused herself to take a call outside. When she came back, her cheeks were flushed in a way that didn't match the cold air. She said it was Grant. He wanted to personally congratulate her. I said that was impressive. She nodded, but her eyes didn't meet mine. That night, after we got home, she didn't want to celebrate. She said she was exhausted. She took a shower, then fell asleep with her phone under her pillow. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling an uncomfortable thought press against the back of my skull. Why would she hide a congratulatory call? If it was innocent, it would have been a story. Rena loved stories. Innocent things became stories. Hidden things became silence. The next hint came from someone I couldn't dismiss. My sister works in HR at a different company. She doesn't gossip. She hears things and filters them like she's evaluating risk. She called me one evening and asked how serious I was about Rena. I said serious. She hesitated, then said she had a friend who worked in the same company as Rena, same division. She said there were whispers, Grant and Rena. I felt my stomach drop. I told my sister she was repeating office misogyny. She didn't get defensive. She just said she was telling me because she cared about me. I hung up and immediately texted Rena something casual, like, "How was your day?" She replied 2 hours later. "Busy, long day, nothing else." The next morning, I brought it up carefully. I told her I'd heard rumors, and I wanted to laugh about them with her, not at her. She went cold, not angry. Cold. She asked who told me. I said it didn't matter. It mattered to her. She started asking questions like she was investigating a leak. Which person? From where? What did they say exactly? I told her it made me uncomfortable how focused she was on the source rather than the fact that people thought she was sleeping with her boss. She said people were jealous. She said I should trust her. She said I was being insecure. That last word landed like a slap. Insecure. It wasn't insecurity to want basic transparency. But when someone says you're insecure, it puts you on defense. It forces you to prove you're calm, and I proved it. I apologized. I still hate that I apologized. From that point on, I stopped asking questions. I started watching. I watched how often she left for work early, dressed like an executive, and came home late with lipstick still perfect. I watched how often she said she was going to dinner with the team but never mentioned names. I watched how often her stories were missing obvious details. And then, one night, she made a mistake. It was small. A notification that popped up on her phone while it was on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping. I was washing dishes. The screen lit up. Grant. Still thinking about last night. You were incredible. It stayed on the screen just long enough for me to read it. My hands froze in the sink. I stared at that sentence until it felt like my brain was trying to reject it. She walked in, saw the phone, and snatched it up. What was that? I asked. Her face tightened. It's work stuff, she said too fast. That isn't work stuff. She laughed, forced. He's dramatic. He says things like that when he's praising a project. Incredible. Last night. You were incredible. There was no way to make that sound like a project. I asked to see the thread. She said no. I asked why. She said because it was confidential. I told her confidentiality didn't cover flirting. She got angry. She said I was accusing her. I said I was asking. She said I was jeopardizing her career by being paranoid. I said her career shouldn't require secrecy with her boss. She stormed into the bedroom and locked the door. That night, I sat on the couch and realized something else. She didn't deny it clearly. She didn't say nothing happened. She didn't say he was inappropriate. She didn't say she'd shut it down. She only said it was confidential. Confidential was her shield, not truth. The next few weeks were the most mentally exhausting weeks of my life. Because once you see a crack, everything you used to ignore becomes suspicious. I didn't want to become the guy who went through phones. I didn't want to become the guy who tracked locations. I didn't want to become the guy who turned his relationship into surveillance. So I made a decision. If I was going to know the truth, it would come from her choices, not my spying. I gave her a chance to be honest. I told her we needed boundaries. I told her late dinners with Grant alone were not acceptable. I told her private weekend trips with the leadership team needed transparency. I told her if she wanted to build a life with me, she couldn't keep treating me like an obstacle. She looked at me like I was naive. She said I didn't understand how corporate life worked. She said relationships at work were about alliances. She said she needed to be strategic. Strategic. That word started showing up everywhere. It was how she justified everything. One evening, she came home later than usual. She smelled like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I asked where she'd been. Team dinner. Which team? Just people. She went to the bathroom, washed her hands for too long, then came back and acted like everything was normal. I watched her walk around my apartment like it belonged to her, like she wasn't slowly burning down what we had built. A week later, she got another big opportunity. A new project, high visibility. She said Grant handpicked her. I tried to be happy for her. I wanted to be the supportive partner. But in my chest, support was curdling into dread. Because I knew what handpicked meant. Handpicked meant chosen. Chosen meant special. And special didn't belong in professional messages that said you were incredible. Then something happened that removed the last layer of doubt. Rena forgot her laptop at home. She called me in a panic, said she had an urgent presentation and she needed a file. I opened the laptop to send it to her. It was already logged in. I wasn't looking for anything. I just needed the file. Her email was open, and there it was. A thread titled Weekend Recap. It was from Grant. I didn't click it at first. I stared at it like staring harder would change what it was. Then I saw the preview line. I keep replaying the hotel room. You made me forget every rule. My hands went numb. I clicked. I wish I could tell you I didn't. I wish I could tell you I walked away with dignity. But I clicked. The messages weren't pornographic. They were worse. They were emotional. They talked about how intense it felt, how risky, how thrilling, how she deserved more, how he could help her, how she was a natural leader, how she was different from everyone else. And then, in the middle of the thread, a message from her. I can't mess this up. I'm so close. Just tell me you still think I'm the right choice. I sat there in my own kitchen, reading my girlfriend ask another man, her boss, to confirm that she was worth promoting. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a slip. This wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy, a relationship used as leverage. She came home later that day, cheerful, like she'd just won something. I didn't confront her immediately. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the laptop. I waited until she put her bag down and looked at me. Her smile faded. "What's wrong?" she asked. I told her I'd seen the emails. Her face went blank. Not shocked, not horrified. Blank. Then she exhaled and sat down slowly, like she was deciding which version of herself to show me. "It's not what you think," she said. I laughed once, short. "It's exactly what I think." She started explaining. Not apologizing. Explaining. She said it started as mentorship. She said it got complicated. She said she felt pressured. She said she didn't know how to say no without hurting her career. I asked her why she asked him to confirm she was the right choice. She hesitated. Then she said the quiet part out loud. Because he decides things. She said it like it was obvious. Like it was physics. Because he decides things. I asked if she loved him. She said no. I asked if she loved me. She said yes. But the yes sounded like a negotiation, like she needed it to be true for the story to work. I asked if she would stop. She looked away. "I can't just blow up my career," she said. There it was. My value had a price. Her promotion was worth more. I told her I wasn't going to be the guy who pretended he didn't know. I told her I wasn't going to sleep next to someone who treated intimacy like a tool. I told her I wasn't going to be an emotional placeholder while she climbed a ladder using someone else's attention. She cried then. Real tears. She said I didn't understand what it was like to be a woman in corporate spaces. She said men offered opportunities with strings. She said she was tired of being overlooked. I didn't argue with that. I believed that part, but I also believed that she still made choices. She chose secrecy. She chose thrill. She chose leverage. She chose to keep me in the dark because she needed me stable while she played risk. I asked her one final question. If you got the promotion tomorrow, would you ever tell me the truth? She didn't answer. And that was the answer. I packed my things the next morning, not in a rage, not violently, quietly, like someone leaving a building after the fire alarm finally went off. She followed me around the apartment, begging, bargaining, promising. She said she would end it. She said she would transfer departments. She said she would do anything. But when I asked her if she would report him, she went silent. Because reporting him meant burning the bridge, and she still wanted to cross it. I left. For weeks afterward, I replayed everything. All the late nights, all the guarded phone angles, all the times she called me insecure, all the times I apologized for noticing. I felt anger, but under the anger there was something worse. Embarrassment. Not because she cheated, because I defended her while she was building a separate life inside my relationship. 2 months after I moved out, I heard she got another promotion. Someone told me it was announced at a company meeting, and Grant praised her as his star. I didn't feel jealousy. I felt a clean, cold clarity. If she could trade intimacy for a title, she would trade anything. And I didn't want to be the thing she traded when the price was right. The last message she sent me was short. She said she hoped I understood. I did. I understood that the person I loved was willing to blur every line as long as she got what she wanted. I understood that she wanted a partner who would accept being collateral. I understood that she would call it strategy and call my boundaries insecurity. But I also understood something else. Self-respect isn't loud. It doesn't need a dramatic exit. It just needs one moment of honesty where you choose yourself. I didn't leave because I couldn't forgive. I left because I finally saw the future. A future where every success came with a shadow. A future where I would always wonder what she traded. A future where love was secondary to leverage. I chose not to live in that future. I chose peace. And the peace I have now is worth more than any promotion she ever chased. After I left, the silence didn't feel like relief right away. It felt like withdrawal. I'd spent so long adapting to her schedule, her mood, her rules, that my own routine felt unfamiliar. I'd wake up and reach for my phone expecting a message from her about some crisis, some meeting, some urgent situation I was supposed to absorb. Instead, there was nothing. Just the hum of my apartment and the fact that my life was mine again. The first week was the hardest because my brain kept trying to rescue the story. It kept offering excuses like they were life rafts. Maybe Grant was manipulating her. Maybe she panicked. Maybe it was a one-time mistake. But then I remembered the line in her email. "I'm so close." That line didn't belong to a victim. It belonged to a person making a calculation. A few days after I moved out, I had to go back to my old place to pick up a box I'd forgotten. I timed it for when she'd be at work. I didn't want a confrontation. I didn't want to see her face and risk softening. Her apartment was quiet, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a set, like a place where a certain version of us had been performed. As I was taping the box shut, I noticed a folder on the counter. It had her company logo on it. Inside were printed documents and notes. I shouldn't have touched it. But I was already living in the aftermath of knowing, and the part of me that needed certainty was still raw. I flipped through the pages and saw a draft org chart with handwritten edits. Next to a role title, she had written my name with a question mark, then crossed it out. My name. In her career planning. Like a consideration. Like a variable. Under it, she'd written a different note. Keep personal clean. It wasn't a love note. It was a strategy note. I put the folder back and left. That was the moment the emotional fog started lifting. I stopped imagining some version of her that would have chosen me if the circumstances were different. She had the circumstances. She had my support. She had a stable relationship. She still chose to build leverage somewhere else. About 2 weeks later, I got another kind of confirmation. A coworker of mine, someone who didn't even know the full story, mentioned that his girlfriend worked in the same building as Rena's company. He said there was a rumor about a VP who was going to get fired because he'd crossed boundaries with someone on his team. My pulse spiked. I asked for the name. He said Grant. It felt like ice water. The rumor wasn't about Rena, but the building had a way of turning anything into a spectacle. People were whispering about investigations, about leadership reshuffles, about how certain promotions might get revisited. Part of me felt satisfaction, and I hated that part. Not because I cared about protecting Grant, because I realized I'd been trained by Rena to think consequences were inconvenient instead of necessary. I didn't want their mess to become my entertainment. I just wanted distance. Rena tried one last time to pull me back in, not with romance, but with a version of honesty. She showed up outside my building one evening. I saw her from the window before she buzzed. She stood there like she was waiting for a meeting. Posture straight, face composed. When I opened the door, she didn't rush into a hug. She stepped in and looked around like she was visiting a place she used to own. She told me she'd been thinking. She told me she hadn't handled things well. She told me she felt ashamed. Then she told me she'd ended it with Grant. I didn't react. She watched my face, searching for the part of me that would soften. I asked her why she ended it. She hesitated, and that hesitation was the whole story. Because the investigation started, she admitted. Because she couldn't afford to be connected to it. Not because she loved me. Not because she understood what she did. Because it became risky. She asked if we could try again. I told her no. She stared at me, confused, like she couldn't understand why the word no existed. She said people make mistakes. I said this wasn't a mistake. This was a method. She said she had done what she had to do. I said I believed her. That's why I was leaving. She got angry then. Not heartbroken. Angry. She said I was judging her. I said I was finally seeing her. She said I didn't understand ambition. I said I understood it fine. I just didn't want to be collateral for it. She left without crying. And that was the cleanest closure I could have gotten, because it proved what the whole relationship had been teaching me in slow motion. She didn't want partnership. She wanted a stable foundation at home while she chased unstable attention at work. She wanted someone to carry her emotional weight while she invested her intimacy elsewhere. In the months after, I started rebuilding the parts of myself I'd minimized. I stopped using the word insecure to describe normal needs. I stopped apologizing for asking questions. I started paying attention to how people reacted when I set boundaries. Healthy people adjusted. Manipulative people attacked. That became my filter. Sometimes I still think about the version of Rena I met at that birthday dinner. The one who made ambition look like confidence and attention look like warmth. I understand now that some people don't see relationships as places to be honest. They see them as places to rest between campaigns. I'm not interested in being someone's rest stop. I want reciprocity. I want honesty. I want love that doesn't require me to pretend I'm fine while my gut is screaming. I didn't leave her to teach her a lesson. I left because I finally learned mine. And the lesson was simple. If someone will trade intimacy for advantage, they will eventually trade you too. So I stepped away before I became another item on her list of strategic sacrifices. That is what choosing self-respect looked like for me. If this story felt real to you, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. More true stories like this are coming.